What's that you say? Something wrong with your cable? Not to worry. I'm sure the cable guy can help. If he really is the cable guy. And if he doesn't have bad intentions. Like in this story. By the way, it's 100% true. Enjoy. This happened a few years back, when my husband and I lived in a townhouse that's part of a relatively large apartment complex. We'd been having issues on and off with our cable service. It wasn't uncommon for us to randomly lose cable access on a TV here or there, or to be unable to watch premium channels like HBO or Showtime, despite the fact that these channels were part of the package we were paying for. As a result, my husband would call the cable company somewhat regularly, and they'd have to schedule time for a technician to take a look. Generally speaking, whenever my husband would schedule a technical call, he'd try to do it for a time frame when he knew he'd be home. On the rare occasion that wasn't possible, he'd always let me know that the tech was going to be at our home, and he'd give me the time frame when I can expect them. Additionally, we'd get a confirmation call from the cable company reminding us of our appointment, asking us to verify someone would be home. On this particular day, a Saturday or Sunday, my husband left to go to work. I was home alone, and it was just a normal day. About 15 minutes after my husband left the house, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole, but didn't see anyone. "Who is it?" I yelled, and heard the muffled response. "It's the tech from the cable company." Confused, because my husband hadn't said anything about someone coming out to look at anything, and because I wasn't aware of any issue we'd been having with our service lately, I opened the door. I wasn't scared at this time. It was daylight, and really seemed like no big deal. There was a man standing on my front porch. He looked to be in his mid-20s, and was of average height and build. He seemed shifty. Initially, it looked to me like he had to pee, kind of hopping a little from one leg to the other. "Can I help you?" I asked. "I was called out to check a few things with your cable box. It sounds like you're having problems with your service. I checked the lines outside and everything looks good. I need to look at a few things inside," he replied. Immediately confused, I peered past him as he stood at my door. I knew our cable was currently working just fine, as we'd had a service call only a few days prior. We hadn't had any problems since then. I realised there was no official van parked anywhere, something all the other technicians had driven during past service calls. I also noticed he had nothing in his hands, no clipboard, paperwork, nothing. I knew from prior visits that there was always a work order that I needed to sign whenever a technician paid a visit. The man was wearing street clothes, a long-sleeved plaid shirt, jeans, work boots, and one of those fluorescent vests you can buy at Walmart that the guys who do construction on the highways wear. I became a little nervous at this point. At best, I thought maybe he was legitimate, but just had the wrong home. I had a feeling that something just wasn't right with this situation. I told him that he must be mistaken, that we had not made any service calls, and started to close the door. Before I could get it closed all the way, he stuck his foot in the doorway, and insisted no mistake had been made. Getting scared, I told him I did not want him coming in the house, and reiterated that we did not report any issues with our cable service. Keeping his foot in the door, the man begins to plead with me to let him inside. He tells me that he's a new technician with the company, and that it's important he fulfill all service requests or he may get fired. He stated it's possible there had been a mix-up, and that we hadn't called anyone for assistance, but that because he had been scheduled to come out, he was still required to look around and verify that everything was in working order. He told me if I could just let him in, he'd call the office and straighten everything out. Very uncomfortable now, I started trying to think of a way to get this guy's foot out of my doorway. I was about to shove him in the chest, hoping to make him lose his balance so I could slam and lock the door when my neighbour arrived next door. Our townhouses were side by side, and we essentially shared the front porch. As she walked up to a door, I loudly said, so that she could hear and realise I was in trouble, that I did not want him at my home, that I had made no service request, that I was not okay with him forcing me to keep talking to him, and that I called the police if he did not leave immediately. My neighbour, understanding the situation, immediately stopped what she was doing and stood on her porch, next to the man, cell phone in hand. She was ready to call 911. Realising he was causing problems, and that now there was a witness to the exchange, the man simply turned around and walked away, saying nothing. I quickly thanked my neighbour for her help, and closed the door, locking it. I called my husband, and confirmed what I already knew to be true. He had not called the cable company for anything at all. Hoping I was just being paranoid, I called the cable company and asked if they'd sent a technician to my home. Accidents can happen, right? They told me they hadn't sent anyone. I then asked if they'd sent anyone to my apartment complex, hoping that maybe the guy had just the wrong address. The company insisted they had not. The incident made me nervous, but there hadn't been any harm done, and because it had happened in the middle of the day, I was able to put it out of my mind pretty quickly. It was a strange thing to have happened, but after the guy left, I just told myself he had probably made an honest mistake somehow, and that I'd just been overly cautious. I forgot about it. A couple of nights later, I was watching the news on mute while cooking dinner. Glancing at the TV absent-mindedly, I was horrified to see the mugshot of the guy who had been on my doorstep just a couple days prior. I quickly turned the sound on. It turns out the man had just been hired as a contractor with a company that partners with the cable company. He had done a service call at a woman's house, returning to her home late the next night, breaking in. She was chatting with a boyfriend when the incident occurred, and whatever it was he heard while they were on the phone made him call the police to request an officer to go and check on her. When the police arrived, they found the woman bound and gagged. She had been sexually assaulted. The man fled, jumping off the balcony towards the rear of the complex when police arrived. They'd shown up mid-assault. 2 hours later, he was apprehended. I was almost hysterical, obviously having seen this on TV. I told my husband, of course, and mentioned the incident to a few close friends. I called the police as well, but didn't hear back from them after having left a message. I assumed they didn't need to speak to me. After having already caught the guy, he was ultimately convicted. At some point, the victim filed a lawsuit against the cable company and the company it gets its contractors from. It seems the man had a criminal record that no one bothered to check prior to hiring him. I have no way of knowing what he planned on doing when he showed up at my place, nor do I want to know. Hopefully, Scary Cable Guy and I will never meet again.